The Supreme Court has been hearing oral arguments on whether former President Donald Trump is immune from prosecution for actions taken while in office. And while the Supreme Court considers this immunity claim, the former president's trial on charges that he tried to overturn the 2020 election is on hold.
Middle MAGA
investigation. But the question is, ordering the assassination of someone, like the justices argued, they then argued, what if the president instructs the military to stage a coup? Trump's lawyers are like, well, it's a hypothetical, but it sounds like an official act. Yes. And they're like, staging a coup? What these people don't understand, because
what is staging? What is that even? What's the definition of that? They're acting like Trump did that. And obviously he did not. So of course it's official act.
They're midwits or worse. There is
if the president staged, I don't even know what that looks like. I mean, let's play out J6. And I'm not advocating for anything, YouTube. Let's just play this out. Let's say the president actually wanted to do that and take over the military, and the military was on his side and wanted to say, we're going to extend things out, and then we're going to do the ballots, and they do, what they do in these third world countries and finagle the ballots, and then, oh, look, I'm the winner. Congress would still have the ability to impeach. Even if Congress had to run and hide, they would still have the ability to vote and impeach. And at that point, Justice, respectfully, at that point, we're beyond where we're at right now. There is no, if that happened, then what's the judicial process? We don't have any process for that. That's 1860 type stuff. And that's not even 1860 because they just wanted to leave, but that's unprecedented. So I don't even know what you mean by that. Yes, it's an official act. You would still have to go through the impeachment. If you can't go through the impeachment, then we're at a much bigger, that doesn't even apply to us at this point.
No circumstance ever where a sitting president will stand up in front of the world and go, I hereby order a military coup to seize power and take over this country. Never going to happen.
Yeah.
What will happen is a president will say, an armed group of terrorists have stormed into a building, so I'm hereby instructing the National Guard to quell the rebellion, and there will be some official justification behind it. And then, in the inverse, what happens if, let's say, you've got President A, a former president, and President B, a current president. They're in an election, and the former president has a bunch of former military guys storm into a building and take it over. And then the sitting president says, I'm instructing the military to go and take him out. But it turns out the former president won the election. Is that a coup? Or is it two warring factions who think they're legally right? The issue is, it actually is quite crazy. The president does enjoy broad immunities. He has to. Otherwise, there is no commander in chief. You would never order a law enforcement action again, ever. You'd be a co-conspirator to all the murders committed by these people. Joe Biden would be indicted right now for child sex trafficking because of what the CBP is doing.
Absolutely.
So certainly we can go after.
We know that's not really going to happen, but in theory, yes, absolutely. Because of selective prosecution, that would never happen. That's why they're perfectly fine with no immunity. They don't want to do what Tim just said there, because the deep state loses power. All of this goes to the deep state trying to maintain power. So no matter what president you put in there, that's what Trump was talking about, that would make him a figurehead. No matter what president you put in there, the deep state has the final say.
CBP for, as we get down.
And the Supreme Court is in on that. Of the 9 justices, at least 4 of them are in on it. Kagan, Sotomayor, Ketanji Brown Jackson, and Amy Coney Barrett. They're all in on it, at least. Roberts actually sounded decent. Alito sounded decent. Gorsuch, Kavanaugh, and Thomas. I think he was pissed, so that's why he didn't talk. So we're about 5-4. How's that for your bench?
A line. But look, my attitude here is, all right, baby. Yeah, the Supreme Court wants to open the door. We arrest Obama.
Well, here's the thing. I think you and I both know that this would be selectively applied.
Yeah.
Sure.
If this were to ever happen. They would never use it against Obama. They would use it against Trump. They wouldn't use it against Biden. They'd use it against whatever Republican gets elected next.
And Republicans
So notice what happens here. Texas v. Pennsylvania. The Supreme Court doesn't take that case. Summer of love, riots, chaos in the country. And they thought they knew, in my opinion, allegedly, that if they took that case, they would have to open up a can of worms that would create unrest. The Supreme Court does not like their decisions creating unrest. I know the Dobbs decision was a unique one. It created a little bit, but not like that. So what they're looking at is, are people aren't really paying attention to this. They don't know what's happening with this. There's not going to be any unrest over this. So they take the case and then they're going to rule I think it's going to be 5-4, very narrow, sending it back to the lower court, basically ambiguous.
Will never do anything.
That's right. That's absolutely right.
One of the things that came up was if you have to understand the personal political motivation, any president could be doing something to get reelected, right? So all of their actions could be taken as actually self-serving or nefarious in some way.
All of their actions could be considered private, or all of their actions could be considered official.
Thing is, it can't be something that retroactively, after the person leaves office, we go back and say, like, actually, you have to be convicted of this thing because whatever. Like, the reason.
Yeah, that's another good point I didn't think about. You don't even know in the moment if it's official or private. So we could retroactively go back and look and say, you thought it was official, but it was private. You know how crazy that sounds? Why are we still talking about the official versus private? I think that's a terrible losing argument. If I was arguing in charge, I'm like, Trump, I'm like, what? We're not parsing out official versus private. Tell me how we do that. Hey, what decision in your life is 100% because of your job, or 0% because you just want to keep your job personally so you can pay your bills? How crazy is that?
That the impeachment process is important is because it sets a standard that the president has done something wrong, has failed, it's some version, it failed their oath of office in some way, and that another branch of government has said you're gone. They would go back to this. The justices, when discussing it today, would come back to this idea that, like, well, other people have high pressure jobs and they have to abide by the law, and it's like being the CEO of a high powered company.
They weren't elected by the people of the United States. You see how that is what they said in the trial. I think it was Ketanji. I forget which ones. One of the wackadoo leftists, at least on this, some of the cases, it's so weird. I've been listening to a lot of the oral arguments, and in some of the cases, Ketanji Brown Jackson is on point. Amy Coney Barrett is on point. And in other ones, it's like, you're a completely different wackadoo. They're so academic. They go into these oral arguments, and this one, all of them on the left and the right, they go in there with this academia. It must be a narrow ruling. And that doesn't apply to this one. I know that's what they taught you in the textbook, but that doesn't apply to this one. You can't do a narrow ruling on immunity. That means you don't have immunity and you have chaos. Their decision is very important, because I think there's a danger with their decision that they actually sow more chaos, because it's so narrow and so ambiguous. It's almost like, what does this mean? I'm going to make a prediction. I think that's what's going to happen here.
Middle MAGA.